The silence that follows the scream is the worst part. It hangs in the humid air of the cave mouth, thick and heavy as the scent of blood and wet earth that drifts up from the valley floor. My repressors hurch eke against the cold stone, the fine grit of familiar, unwelcome texture against her skin. Below, in the last bruised light of dusk, the pack moves with a fluid, terrifying purpose. They are not the brutish thunder lizards of the open plains, the Allosaurus that can be seen undevoided. These are the new gods of this valley, a pack of Utahraptors, and their reign is one of scalpel-sharp intelligence. Their calls are not roars but a series of sharp, avian clicks and guttural hisses, a language of death the clan is learning far too quickly. One of the hunters, a young man named Beoa, lies broken on the game trail. The pack does not feast, not yet. They drag him, a deliberate, instructional act of terror, toward the tree line. Kale, the elder, grips Selwyra's arm, his knuckles bony and hard. His touch is not a comfort, but a command. Back he rasps, his voice the sound of stones grinding together. They want us to see. This is the core of their new nightmare in this prehistoric world. The raptors are not just hunting, they are cleansing. This being a sanctuary for generations is being systematically purged. The great dinosaurs, the lumbering herbivores and solitary predators, understood a certain balance. But this family of Dromaeosauridae is different. They think, they coordinate, and they are patient. For 3 weeks, the clan of the Painted Caves has been pinned here, prisoners in their own fortress, watching their world shrink to this single precarious ledge. The first attack was a masterpiece of ambush. The hunting party, strong and confident, was dismantled in seconds, their spears the pinnacle of their osteodontokeratic technology, tipped with sharpened Triceratops horn and bone rendered useless against the storm of feathers and sickle claws. Now fear is a more pressing hunger than the one in their bellies. The children no longer cry, they watch the cave mouth with wide, silent eyes, a lesson in survival skills learned too young. The daily rhythms of these ancient humans, once dictated by the sun and the herds, are now governed by the raptors' patrol routes. The very air seems to hum with their presence, a constant, predatory pressure that grinds down the spirit. Lyra watches the Utahraptor, a magnificent, scoured female with plumage the color of dried blood, as it climbs a nearby outcrop. It doesn't look at the cave. It looks past it, at the river, at the ridge mapping its new kingdom. It is a conqueror, and its ascendancy is a brutal lesson in human evolution. Adapt or become a fossil record for a future no one can imagine. Days bleed into one another. The clan's world is now a tapestry of shadows and whispers. Hunger is a constant, dull ache in the pit of every stomach, a beast gnawing from within that is almost as terrifying as the ones outside. The reserves of dried meat and tuberose are gone. The hunters can only watch the herds of iguanodon move tantalizingly across the far plains, a feast as unreachable as the moon. It is the psychological warfare that cuts deepest. The Utahraptors drag their kills past the cave mouth, a deliberate parade of dominance. They leave carcasses just out of reach, a taunt that invites desperation, and with it, a fatal mistake. The clan sees its own future in those shattered bones, a grim forecast written by a superior predator. The very idea of Homo sapiens as a rising force is a joke in this valley. Here, they are simply clever prey, cornered and waiting for the end. But Kale the Elver does not watch the raptors anymore. His gaze, sunk deep into a face mapped with hardship, is fixed elsewhere. He spends hours motionless, observing a patch of dense cycads at the valley's southern choke point. It is the nesting ground of the local Triceratops herd. A force of nature unto itself, a moving fortress of horn and bone. He watches their unthinking, irresistible power. He sees the bull male, a mountain of muscle and reptilian rage, effortlessly overturn a fallen tree. He notes the deep, instinctual hatred the horned faces have for any two-legged predator, the way they form a defensive wall at the mere scent of a theropod. And in this ancient biological animosity, an idea takes root, a plan so audacious, so contrary to every survival instinct, that it borders on madness. He gathers the strongest of the clan in the deepest part of the cave where the firelight makes their faces flicker like ancestral spirits. His voice is low or rumble of stones. We are the water, he begins, his eyes finding Lyra's. We cannot break the rock. if it flows the right way. He points a trembling finger not toward the raptors, but toward the Triceratops. The plan unfolds in the terrified silence. They will not fight the sickles. They will use the thunder. They will become the catalyst, the irritant. A small, swift party will descend the hidden cliff face at dawn, approach the Triceratops herd from downwind, and wound one of the cows. Not to kill, but to incite, to create a frenzy of parental rage and direct it, like a spear straight through the raptor's nesting grounds in the cycad grove. It is a plan that requires perfect timing, unthinkable courage, and an acceptance of sacrifice. The ones who go will likely not return. They are not warriors going to battle, they are fuses being lit. The hard choice hangs in the smoky air. It is a gamble with the very soul of the community, a horrific piece of anthropology, in motion, using one monster to destroy another, with themselves as the bait. There is no debate. Only the hollow-eyed acceptance of a people with no other path. The descent happens in a world of grey mist before the dawn. There are 4 of them, including Lyra. Kale chose her not for her strength, but for her stillness, her ability to move without a sound. Each handhold on the slick, vine-choked rock is a prayer. Below, the world of prehistoric life is stirring. The air, cool and damp, carries the scent of fern and decay, and the low, resonant stomach crumble of the Triceratops herd. They are the target, the living weapon. They move like ghosts through the undergrowth, their feet making no sound on the mulch of fallen leaves. The plan is simple in its horror: a single, well-aimed flint spear into the flank of a youngling, just deep enough to draw blood and to scream of pain. It is an act of profound cruelty, a sin against the spirits of the hunt, but it is their only chance. The moment comes. A young Triceratops, clumsy and curious, strays a few paces from its mother. Rory C., the lead hunter, rises from the ferns. The spear flies true. The calf shrieks, a high, piercing cry of shock and pain. For a heartbeat, the world holds its breath. Then the ground begins to tremble. The mother's head, a massive shield of bone crowned with 3 lethal horns, snaps up. A bellow of pure rage erupts from her throat. A sound that is not heard but felt in the bones, answers with a roar that shakes the very leaves from the trees. The stampede is instantaneous, a force of nature unleashed. It is not a charge, it is an earthquake of flesh and fury. The 4 humans scatter, their part in this terrible drama complete. From the cave mouth, the rest of the clan watches the judgment unfold. The earth roars as the herd, a churning river of keratinous beaks and thundering feet, plows a straight line of devastation toward the cycad grove. The Utahraptors are caught completely by surprise. The alpha female screeches a warning, but it is too loud, like a battering ram. The ensuing dinosaur fight is not a contest, it is an annihilation, leaping and slashing with their sickle claws, but they are gnats against a mountain. One lunges at a bull, only to be impaled, its vulnerable underbelly and soft gastrolly ripped open by a horn. Nests are trampled, eggs crushed into the mud. The clan watches the scarred alpha, their tormentor, leap onto the back of a subadult Triceratops, tearing at its hide, only to be crushed against a tree as the horned beast scrapes it off. A maelstrom of primal violence that reshapes the valley. When the dust begins to settle, the herd thunders on, their rage carrying them into the plains beyond. The raptors are gone. Their reign is broken. But, of the 4 who descended, only Lyra returns, half-dragged, half-carried by a wounded Rory C., her eyes reflecting the terrible price of their survival. An indifferent Ankylosaurus, its armored back, like a cluster of living rock, ambles past the carnage, utterly unconcerned. Look closer at the terror in Lyra's eyes, at the grim calculus in Kayla's mind. This was more than a single clan's victory against a pack of dinosaurs. It was the moment an idea became the most dangerous weapon on the planet. For millions of years, the law of this ancient earth was written by claw and tooth, by strength and size. But on that morning, a new chapter began. The frail hominids, armed with nothing but desperation and a spark of abstract thought, did not just kill their enemy, they turned the very power of the prehistoric world against itself. They weaponized the ecosystem. This act of brutal, terrifying intellect using a stampede as a tool, a herd as a projectile is the blueprint for everything that is to come. It is the first, faint echo of the spear, the arrow, the atom bomb. Their desperate gamble was the birth of strategy, the dawn of asymmetrical warfare, a declaration that the rules of survival had irrevocably changed. And one must ask as we stand now upon the bones of titans, was that morning in the valley a triumph of our species, or the moment we first learned the terrible art of mastering a world by setting it against itself? This is how we learned to haunt the monsters. And deep within the steaming jungle, something new is breaking from its shell,